Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 338, How to Have a Difficult Conversation, an interview with Sarah Fisk.
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, Grief Expert, Widow, and Mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Difficult conversations. They're not easy to have, right? Especially in grief. So I have something special for you today. Before we jump in, I want to tell you, if you are listening to this podcast and it is before November 18th, 2025, then there is still time for you to join the Happier Holiday for Widowed Moms live event. We start Tuesday, November 18th, and I will go live and teach for 30 minutes, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Simple, easy. I will teach you 3 tools that I know will help make grief easier. It is completely free to do this event. If you cannot attend live, do not worry. We will send you the replays, all right? I will even give you worksheets so that you can not forget the most important things that you hear me talk about. So go to coachingwithkrista.com/free holiday event, coachingwithkrista.com/free holiday event. And you can check out that event, register for free, tell a widow that you love to meet you there. And I may not be able to make the holidays easy, but I definitely can make them easier, happier. So I'll see you there. Okay. All right. So this week on the podcast, I recently brought in a dear friend of mine, Sarah Fisk, to work with my members in Mom Goes On, which is my coaching community for widows who are wanting to love life again. And I know you hear me talk about that a lot. Sarah is not only a good friend, but she's an amazing coach, a coach that I very much respect. And one of the things that she is brilliant at helping people with is having difficult conversations. And I know that in grief, it's always, difficult to have a difficult conversation, but in grief, it can be extra hard. It can have a tenderness about it, a vulnerability about it that is unique to grief. And so my Mom Goes On members absolutely loved Sarah and had such wonderful things to say about the time that she spent with them inside of our community. And I wanted you to get a taste of what she has to offer. I wanted you to be able to learn from her too. So as you listen, think about where the challenging conversations that a part of me would really like to have, but I feel some fear around or some apprehension around. And see if Sarah can't provide some insight and some relief. I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So with that, let's get into my episode, How to Have a Difficult Conversation, an interview with Sarah Fisk. All right. Welcome, my lovely friend, to the podcast. How are you?
So excited. You are my favorite. Conversations with you are my favorite. So I have high hopes for today.
No pressure. No pressure at all. So for those of you who don't know Sarah, I mean, maybe there are people who don't know you, but I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, all the things.
I am a coach. I am a mom of 5 kids. I am a wife. I am a reader and a chocolate eater, sometimes at the same time. And I love my job. I coach women who are stuck in people-pleasing behaviors that are not serving them anymore. And I help them find like some personal power in that dynamic that just doesn't feel good anymore. And for so many women, midlife or later is when they really start feeling kind of imprisoned by that. But at any point in life, I love to have conversations where women are listening about how things can be better for them.
Yeah, that's where most of my clients are too, right? Is midlife.
Yeah.
And it's like the perfect storm of sometimes, well, obviously grief, spousal loss, and then sometimes empty nesting, and then sometimes perimenopause and menopause, right? All the identity shifting of like, it can be a perfect storm. So yeah, I think there's a lot we can talk about that will help people. So, okay. I brought you in not long ago to my Mom Goes On coaching container to have you teach, which you have done before. the last time I brought you in, you taught on people pleasing. This time you taught on difficult conversations, which is kind of what spurred the idea behind this podcast episode, that you noticed some unique things. So before we talk about what you noticed that was different in grief and difficult conversations, can we be super basic and just tell people how you even define what a difficult conversation is? What are we even talking about?
A difficult conversation is just any conversation you don't want to have.
Hmm.
It's pretty, pretty simple, and it varies from person to person. I have had clients who are terrified to tell the Starbucks barista that they got the order wrong, right? And that's a genuine feeling of fear for them. I have other clients for whom that would be no problem, but telling their child how much they love them, that would be a really difficult conversation. Or telling their partner or spouse how hurt they are by a certain dynamic in their relationship, that would be a very difficult conversation. It really is individual, and it's based 100% on what you were taught to believe was okay to say growing up.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people who grow up where there's a lot of conflict and it's dealt with very openly and everybody feels safe doing it. That's rare, right? It's not the norm. But for all the rest of us, we learned there are certain things I can't say. There are, this is oftentimes not talking about it is a way that problems are handled, right? We have a problem, we just kind of don't talk about it, and a period of time passes and it goes away. Or when I speak up, I get in trouble. I get punished in some way, or connection is withdrawn. And when that happens really young, you grow up with those ideas of this is how communication should happen. And so it's individual, but anyone listening, if a conversation is difficult for you. And it usually involves not wanting to face something or feel something.
Mm. Okay, say more about that. What do you find in your experience that people are not wanting to face or feel?
They're often not wanting to face the truth about a dynamic. So, for a long time, I had a hard time believing that my husband genuinely loved me.
Mm.
And I had this dynamic where I was constantly like testing him. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Will you stay with me if I do this or say this? And what I was afraid to face was the truth of, do you love me and will you stay with me even when I'm difficult? Even when I don't perform the niceness that you really want me to perform. So whether it's with a boss about, am I a good employee here? Do you value me? Is my job safe here? With a friend, are you the kind of friend who's really going to show up for me and really see me through, the next period of time in our lives? So there's a question in relationships, and we're afraid to ask. We're afraid to ask for our needs being met, our wants being met, and that can be something that we don't want to face.
Why do you think that's so hard for women in particular?
Because one of the reasons, and like there are a lot of them, but what instantly comes to mind is so much of what we are taught about love and belonging is conditional. It's conditioned on our behaving in a certain way, the good girl rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't make anybody uncomfortable. Don't be too inconvenient for people. Don't take up too much space. Don't be dramatic. Don't have needs that take up more than your quote unquote fair share. And so we're constantly vigilant and kind of measuring, am I okay here? Are you okay? Do you like me? And that experience of conditional connection or conditional love, that just kind of drives the engine of everything we do. And because so many of us have had experiences being punished with disconnection, with friends not wanting to be friends with us anymore because we acted a certain way, or because, we didn't get the right grades, or we didn't know how to handle a certain dynamic, I think there's a real fear that we grow up with that if I don't act right, whatever right is, I will not be loved. I will not be wanted. I will not be valuable.
Yeah. So that segues into something else I wanted to ask you, because after you came and taught inside of Mom Goes On, you mentioned to me that you noticed some real differences in the types of hard conversations, difficult conversations that people are wanting to have. So first, can you talk about that? And then what you just said kind of spurred some other follow-up questions.
Okay.
What did you notice?
I noticed that for women who are experiencing the loss of a spouse, most of the conversations that they needed to have, I would just call tender conversations, conversations about deep grief, about deep fear, about wanting to know people in their lives better and not knowing, how do I get that? Like, now that I've experienced the loss of this person who was so important to me, I realize I want more connection. I want more vulnerability. I want more intimacy with everybody else in my life because I see how much it matters now that I feel the loss of it with my spouse. And I don't really know how to get it. And so sometimes those conversations take the form of like action that needs to be taken. There's a home that needs to be sold, or assets or things that need to be divided and shared, or there's details of something that need to be worked out. But I'm afraid to have this conversation because what if it reveals that we're not as close as I thought we were, or that there's some resentment that I really don't feel equipped to talk about, or this person that I want to have the conversation with is going to have really big feelings and I don't really know what to do with their big feelings and my big feelings at the same time.
Yeah. And all of that on top of a shaky foundation,
That's
an
right.
extra shaky foundation that maybe wasn't so shaky before,
Yeah.
where we don't have that person to tell us how much they believe in us and are cheering us on and, validate. And the emotional intensity and the nervous system dysregulation that we've just been through makes us less inclined to want to go through it again. It's like, okay, I've already experienced this huge loss. Do I really want to take this chance of having this difficult conversation with someone that feels so important to me, but also so scary to me because holy crap, I could lose them too.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And so you kind of see in that the combination of there are some things I'm afraid to face, and there are some things I'm afraid to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know how to manage that.
Mm-hmm. And also, what I have noticed is part of what we don't want to face is the misalignment that we are left with when we don't deal with the conversation that needs to be had. Because this is what I see, right? We come up against this like person dies, and then there's this audit that kind of happens where we look around and we're like, okay, this relationship is working for me. This one is not. I thought I could depend on this person. Now they have ghosted me. Or surface level relationships no longer feel tolerable for me. I want depth. And so we see the misalignment, but then already because there's like this shaky foundation and it feels like there's so much more to lose, it's almost like you're danged if you do, danged if you don't kind of
That's
thing.
right. That's right. That's
Feels
right.
very high stakes.
It feels very high stakes, all on top of still dealing with the grief,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like kind of just the ups and downs of a very normal human grieving process that is not the same on any two given days for a lot of people, right? So
Yeah, there's that too.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the goal? So Are we aiming to be good at hard conversations? Are we just trying to be good at being uncomfortable so that we can have hard conversations? Like what's the goal in your mind?
In my mind, the goal actually feels more like freedom.
Hmm.
I am free to either sit with something and keep it to myself in a way that feels good or feels productive or feels like what is best, or I'm free to have the conversation. I have the skills, I have the confidence, I have the kind of the confidence that I will take good care of myself no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think there is value in both. Sometimes I have been very well served by keeping a topic internal for a while as I kind of just watch myself experience it. I watch how my thinking about it shifts and changes. I think we've all had conversations on a Monday, and then on Wednesday we're like, oh my gosh, why did I open up about that? Because I feel very different about it. Or now I've learned other, factors that I wish I would have waited. So there's value in being able to sit with a topic, but in connection with it
Mm-hmm.
and in confidence with it, even if it's a little uncomfortable.
And then being able to decide.
And then being able to decide, like, this is the best time, this is the best way. And then there's a lot of value in having the confidence to say, I know how to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how it's all going to go, but I know I'm going to take good care of myself no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm. Can you can you help me understand too, like what's your trajectory been with difficult conversations? How did you even come to being interested in having conversations about conversations?
Such a great question. I grew up in a very conservative religious organization, the Mormon Church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And in that um, in that place, I learned there are very specific things you can talk about and some things you can't, right? And then my family culture was also like, we either talk about something ad nauseum to where everybody just wants to like jump off a building, beat a dead horse, two dead, 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 or we don't talk about it at all.
Mm.
And that was very confusing for me to figure out, like, how do I know? And so I just grew up keeping a lot of things internal. And then I would get to a place where I would kind of explode.
Mm.
And that kind of keep it in, keep it in, keep it in, explode, keep it in, keep it in, keep it in, explode, was very uncomfortable for me. It was really uncomfortable in some of my relationships. And so after I became a coach and left that religious organization and just started looking at the programming, I could see how the quality of my relationships was directly proportional to my ability to talk about the things going on in that relationship.
Mm.
With my husband, I had a very kind of armored up, like I kind of had to keep him at a little bit of a distance because I didn't want him to see how much I was struggling or how lonely I felt. I didn't want to ask for help because it felt weak, like I should be able to do it by myself. And because I couldn't say those things to him, that was a certain level of intimacy and vulnerability in our relationship. And I really liked him and I really wanted to have more connection with him. And as I tried to get that a bunch of different ways and realized, gosh, that way doesn't work, this doesn't work, really the only thing left was to talk about those really tender things that felt in the beginning, I'm not kidding you, like peeling my skin off
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, the level of exposure. But it was the thing that absolutely has changed our relationship into, I mean, it's the thing I'm most proud of and most protective of. And you'll hear me get a little, emotional about it because it is the thing that matters the most to me in the world,
Mm-hmm.
is the connection that we share, the way that we know each other. To know and be known by another person is just the most tender of human experiences. And you can only have that if you can talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. So somebody comes to you and they say, okay, Sarah, I want the freedom that comes from being able to know that I can have a difficult conversation, whether I have it or not. How do I get there? Well, what do I do? Where do I even start?
Yes. That's my favorite question, because we start with first understanding, how did I get here? What did I learn about communication growing up? This is one of those places where your childhood matters.
Mm.
If you were punished, if you were cut off, if there were certain things you couldn't talk about, it's important to spend some time investigating that, journaling about it, like going back and remembering, was I comfortable communicating? Because most of the time, women in midlife, they tend to have a healthy amount of criticism and self-judgment. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 50x-year-old woman. Why can't I just say it? Why can't I just
Mm.
have the conversation? And in that criticism and self-judgment, they make the mistake of thinking that something is wrong with them, instead of understanding, no. This is just something to understand about yourself. And once you understand it, it makes total sense,
Yeah.
right? It makes total sense that if I grew up thinking, if we have a problem, the way we solve it is to either talk about it to death, which as a kid, I just hated that dynamic. And so I really tried to not recreate that. Or my other option is to just not talk about it at all. If that's how problems get solved, of course, I'm going to have that dynamic in my relationships. And I can understand that with some generosity and some graciousness as a starting point. And that feels way better than being judgmental and
Mm-hmm.
self-critical.
Okay, so first we are noticing any ways that we might be criticizing ourselves for not being as good at difficult conversations as we want to be, and instead getting curious and compassionate about why that actually might make complete sense given our lived experience and what we were taught and have been through.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, you go
I was
ahead.
like, such a great, like, such a life-changing thing, even if that's the only thing you did. Was like
Even
you
if,
just made your
yes.
own behavior make sense.
And I will tell you, it's the same for everything. If you have a relationship with food that is not your favorite, what were you taught about food, the purpose of food, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a relationship with really anything,
Yeah.
more often than not, I mean,
Well, it's the same thing for grief, right?
Yes.
Like if you were taught that you're only supposed to quote unquote feel sad for a year and then it's supposed to be done. Well, when you get to the year mark, of course you're going to be beating yourself up because you're going to be believing you're not where you're supposed to be. And
Yeah.
many other judgments that
Yes.
we have about how we handle things.
If your grief was dismissed, if you were sad and you were handed a lollipop, if, lots of different ways that the adults in our lives tried with varying degrees of success to help us with grief, will shape what you
Mm-hmm.
think grief should be like. Yeah. And more often than not, I mean, I really can't even think of a time that a woman came into a coaching relationship and she didn't criticize and judge herself. That's like the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get out of that relationship first, where I can see myself with generosity and graciousness, that's not the same as it's okay, or I want to stay at this
Yeah.
level or in this behavior. And I think that's kind of where we mix that up, is I can let myself make sense. I can be tender and kind of generous with where I am now and still want to change it. And I
Yeah,
don't have to criticize it.
Yes, you're saying we're not resigning ourselves to repeating the same thing. We're just going to be compassionate about how we got here in the first place and what makes this so hard. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And it
Okay.
changes the nature of the relationship, because it feels so much better to change something from generosity and graciousness than it does to change it from criticism and judgment. And
Yeah,
I think you can't. I don't think any long-term change happens from criticism and judgment.
I agree with you. Having tried.
I have tried.
That don't work. Okay. So I have heard you say that you believe conflict is a doorway. Can you talk about what you mean and why you say that?
Yes. It goes back to the statement that I made before, in that the quality and the depth and the vulnerability and the intimacy and the connection in your relationships is directly proportional to your ability to talk about the issues in those relationships. And so conflict or these difficult conversations are actually the doorway to greater intimacy, greater vulnerability, greater connection of all kinds. And sometimes you have a person who can meet you in that conversation and they want vulnerability and they want conflict to be that doorway for both of you. And so you end up having this amazing experience of deeper connection, being seen and heard at a deeper level. And then you get to enjoy that. I think sometimes it doesn't always go that way, and we should talk about that. But it has been kind of the joy of my life to have relationships with people with whom I can talk about things, with whom I can share my feelings, with whom I can share my love for them, my appreciation for them, my admiration of them, and to have it be mirrored back and to experience like the safety and the connection of those relationships is just, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. So it's, I'm forgetting the phrase that I always use when I talk about it, which is funny because I've said it so many times. I'm not sure why it's not coming to me now, but I feel like what you're saying is what you unlock when you're willing to have hard conversations is a quality of the relationship itself, which then multiplied over one or more relationships is totally changing the quality of your life, essentially, and the intimacy that you get to experience. And some you will find people who want to connect and want to go deep with you and work through whatever it is. And that will be, that will feel like a win for that relationship. But then even when it's not, and that person doesn't want to engage or doesn't respond the way that you want, we could also say, yes, maybe there's some grief then that needs to happen, but it's also a win in the long term if your goal is intimacy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
One of the things that women often say to me is, I put so much effort into my relationships without really stopping to do an evaluation of like, is that relationship worth all this effort? Or is there a modified effort level that is more, that reflects really the nature? I'm not saying that very clearly. For example, my mom, amazing woman. I love her very much. She loves me very much. When I left the Mormon church, it was devastating for her because of what she believed about the consequences of what I was doing. And there were several times when we tried to talk about, she kind of wanted to understand why, but also I could tell she really didn't. And so one time we were talking and I said, Mom, you've never even asked me about what that was like for me to lose my faith, to lose my community, to lose my friends, to lose kind of the way that I saw my whole worldview. And she sighed and put her hands in her lap and she just kind of shook her head and said, And she didn't ask me, right? I saw myself in that moment handing her that line. Okay, now you get to ask me. And she didn't. She declined. And I felt a lot of grief about that. But also now I know that my relationship with her is actually not somewhere where I need to spend a lot of time and energy and effort. And it's okay. And that might sound sad to people. And I think in the beginning it was because we have this idea of what mother-daughter relationships should be. But we are actually fine to talk about the weather and what's on sale at Costco and what's going on in kind of extended family. How is Aunt so-and-so and cousin so-and-so doing? And I feel just as connected to her and loved by her as I ever have. And I don't spend a lot of time trying to put effort into that relationship to try to deepen it because she has shown me kind of this is as far as it goes.
Yeah, it has been right-sized.
That's right. That's a great way of saying it.
Yeah.
Women, I think, spend a lot of time and energy trying to see, is this relationship going to be good for me, when we need to know how to right-size it. And a conversation will do that.
I love that. Okay. So can we move into some things that maybe are a little bit more practical, tangible, usable?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if someone's thinking about having a difficult conversation and they're worried that maybe they're going to get angry or they're not going to stay calm or, it's going to get emotionally high, what are some things that would help them deal with that?
Perfect. We had kind of started down this road when you said, what's the first thing? And basically the first thing is like, be nice to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is going to be recognize that you are already uncomfortable if you're not having a conversation about something. You are already feeling worried or afraid or anxious. And so what I'm asking you to consider is that if I'm already uncomfortable because I'm not speaking up, then what I'm going to feel is a different kind of uncomfortable when I have the conversation. I'm uncomfortable if I'm not speaking up. I'm uncomfortable if I am. And I just need to recognize that. I think that would be maybe step number 2. Step number 3 would be.
Can we, before you go to step number 3,
Sure.
I just want to say it a different way and see if what I'm saying is what you're teaching. So basically, like, it's an illusion to think that the discomfort only comes when I start the conversation, because I'm already sitting here and I'm already feeling uncomfortable. So maybe stop telling myself that it's going to be uncomfortable and remind myself that here I am uncomfortable and I'm already handling it.
That's right.
Okay. Got it. Yes.
That's exactly right. Let's go back to the conversation with my mom. I was feeling very alone. I was feeling very misunderstood. I was feeling really, I think misunderstood was the deepest one. I really wanted her to know my reasons for leaving. And frankly, I wanted her to like my reasons for leaving and say that it was okay, which, was probably beyond what she was going to be able to do. But that discomfort was already there. It was there when I was present with her. It was there when I would go over to their house. It was already there. So the discomfort of talking to her about it was the discomfort of, what if she doesn't agree with me? What if she doesn't like my reasons? What if she doesn't say, I'm proud of you for doing this, and instead doubles down on, I think you've made a mistake. So those 2 types of discomfort were already there. And so step number 3 would be, which one of those do I think serves me?
Yes. Yes.
Because in some cases, you're going to be uncomfortable not having a conversation, but it might actually be the better thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's so individual, and only you will know. I'm thinking back to, I have a daughter who is gay. And when my grandmother was alive, my daughter was trying to think through, should I tell her? Should I not tell her? And my grandmother at the time was very old, 93 years old. And my daughter decided, that's just not a conversation I'm going to have. Like, I don't think it would be good. I don't think it would be good for our relationship for whatever time she has left. She ended up passing away a year later. And so my daughter liked her reasons for just kind of sitting with the discomfort of, grandma doesn't really know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm kind of performing this, being straight for my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
But she liked her reasons. And so sometimes you will like your reasons for not having the conversation. Oftentimes you will want to have the conversation, but you need to really take a minute and investigate your reasons. If I had decided, well, and actually, let me go back to the conversation with my mom. My reasons were, I want to know, Mom, if you can meet me in some deeper vulnerability here. I want to know if you can listen to something that you disagree with and still see me as a person. And I liked those reasons. And so I went over and we had the conversation. Before I went to have the conversation, I did a series of just mental rehearsals. And that's what I would call step 4. I imagined myself sitting in their living room on that brown leather couch with the red cushions and saying, Mom, this is why I left. And this is what hurt me. And this is what I didn't agree with. And this is what was hard for me. And in some cases, I had literally practiced the sentences I want to say, but I always practice being in that headspace and kind of imagining, because mental rehearsal is really powerful. it will actually bring up in your body the feelings that you are going to be having when you're doing it in real life. And it's a chance to practice. It's literally like doing some reps at the gym, right? With some emotional dumbbells to increase your strength and increase your capacity, because you get to practice feeling those emotions and saying the words. I mean, if you think about it, it's a complicated thing, because I'm feeling all of this and my mouth has to keep working and my ears have to keep working and I have to listen to what's being said. And then I got to switch, I have to think on my feet and maybe switch lanes if the conversation goes a different way. Having this kind of conversation is complex. And so why not practice it a little bit first? And that's what mental rehearsal is for.
I love that idea. And as obsessed as I am with tapping, I think I would do it while tapping if I were doing it.
Yes.
Yeah. Keeping my nervous system regulated. And yeah.
That's right. And that is, I'm so glad you said that. It's such a beautiful way of showing your body, like, we can do this. I'm right here with you. I'm paying attention to the experience that you are having. And I am on purpose taking care of you so that this is a better experience.
Beautiful. Okay. So mental rehearsal. Okay. So then thinking about what to say, what not to say, what makes it easier, what do we want to avoid? What about those kinds of logistical in the moment pieces of advice that you might have?
There is a lot in the answer, like a really thorough answer to that question is a whole other podcast episode, because it gets into a lot of the context of things, right? But to keep it simple for today, I want everybody listening to imagine a scale from 1 to 10. And 1 is communication that is very nice, very sweet, very accommodating, acquiescing, apologizing. Yeah, you're making the throw up face. I'm right there with you. Over here at 10 is what we would usually call like bold or bitchy or even mean, which is what women get called when we are just very clear and not apologetic. And so you have that scale, 1 to 10. Women usually start communicating from the 1 side of the scale. We're trying to be nice. We're explaining all of our reasons. We are trying to get buy-in from the other person so that they agree with us and that they don't, push back at all. And what we sacrifice on that end of the scale is clarity and what we really want to say. So if we start our communication, I want you to just imagine that 10 out of 10, bold, clear, even bitchy or mean. What if we started from that end of the scale? Not because we're going to actually say those sentences that are 10 out of 10, but because we want our body to feel that. We want it to be an option. And then instead of starting at 1, we start at 10 and then we back it off. What does 9 out of 10 sound like? What would 8 out of 10 sound like? What would 7 out of 10 sound like? And I find that most women, right in that 7, 8, 9, that's where the communication needs to happen, not down at 1 or 2.
So when you go to 10, even if you didn't actually say it the way that you would say it if you were at a 10, you get the clarity of really what you're trying to communicate and what is important to you to say.
That's right. That's right.
I love that.
And in a tender conversation, kind of the ones that we were talking about when I was coaching in your group, sometimes we want to say the clearest, most vulnerable thing. Sometimes we really want to. And so we know what that is. If I can go back to the dynamic with my husband, I remember realizing that the clearest, most vulnerable thing that I could say to him was, I'm so afraid you're going to leave me. And when I realized that that's really what I was afraid of, and I thought, okay, can I really say this? Can I handle the exposure? And the answer was yes. That invited the most vulnerability from him as well. And so starting at a 10 sometimes means that we do want to say that thing. And sometimes it means that, you know what, I really don't like that 10 out of 10, but I've got 9 out of 10. I've got 8 out of 10. I've got 7. I've got options that kind of
Mm-hmm.
dial down either the boldness or the vulnerability because I like my reasons for doing that.
Yeah, I love that. I wouldn't have thought of that on my own, so I'm really glad that you brought that up. And even just imagining going to the 10, I noticed I felt uncomfortable in my body. And I
Yeah.
didn't even have a particular discussion in mind. So that's an interesting thing to notice too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is an interesting, just emotional exercise to go to the 10 and ask myself why I like it or I don't. I love investigating my reasons. I feel like I am so smart, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the women who are listening to this, we are wise, we are smart, we have a sense of things. And when we give ourselves the chance to connect to that, oftentimes we have a really good sense of what it is that needs to be said.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, and I ask that question a lot too, what are your reasons and do you like your reasons? But I also remember a time when my relationship with that question was there's a right reason and a wrong reason. And she's asking me if my reasons are right or wrong. And I don't know if you had a similar journey or maybe it was just easier for you than it was for me, but like coming to the conclusion of no, legitimately, it's not about is there a right reason or a wrong reason? It's about my reason is valid, but have I figured out what it is? Right? Or am I just using everybody else's reasons? Or have I internalized a bunch of shoulds, you know? Because
For
when I
me,
can get clear on that, oh my gosh, so different.
yes, 100%. And for me, it was all about what are God's reasons, right?
Oh,
So there was
yeah.
very definitely a right and a wrong. And it felt, it just felt wrong to have my own personal feelings about something. It's like defaulting to God, what God wanted. That was like the story of growing up. And so if anyone is listening and they came from like that religious, conservative, or even just religious background, I think one of the things that is so interesting is that a lot of what religions do is they just take the good girl rules or patriarchy and they put it in God's mouth. And now
Mm-hmm.
God wants you to not ever upset anybody and be nice. God wants you to defer to the men or the people who know the authorities in your life. And so, oh yeah, I still have that like right or wrong that I recognize now. And I can be gentle and kind with myself because again, it makes so much sense that as a 45-year-old woman, I was still going to church because I was afraid to tell my parents that I didn't want to go anymore. And I was afraid to disappoint God. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I wish that I had known that version of Sarah because it's so different than the one that I know. And I mean, granted, I have seen in just in our time knowing each other, I have seen steps towards so much more clarity and boldness. And sometimes the stuff that you tell me that conversations that you've had, I'm like, holy cow, that took a lot of bravery. But I can't help but wish that I had seen that version of you because it feels markedly different.
I love that you said that. And I also think I did a good job of hiding, how insecure or how indecisive, how worried I was all the time that I was disappointing somebody somewhere, either
Mm-hmm.
God or my parents or my friends, or it was a lot to live with. And I think if anyone listening to this feels that or feels the sense of like, I'm going to get in trouble somehow, some way, I just want to give you a hug
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot to live with, and to now not have the support of a partner to kind of help you with that can feel extra lonely and just extra isolating.
Yeah. And then also there's like the knowing that this is what happened to me. And I see it in my clients all the time. This is probably why it's so easy to see it because it's what happened to me, where it is like a record scratches and you are like, oh, okay. Life is way more precious and shorter than I thought. And this stuff, the way that I used to walk through the world is now not okay anymore. And a huge part of that, which is why a huge part of post-traumatic growth, like that's one of the main categories, right? Is relationships with others. It's I feel the misalignment between how we are and how I want us to be and who I am in this relationship and who I want to be. And so I think it cannot be underestimated, the importance of what you're teaching and helping people with.
It is, I mean, it's just life that we all learn things different ways, right? You never intended to become a grief coach.
Yeah.
And
true.
yet, because of the way your life worked out, circumstances beyond your control, here you are. I didn't intend to be born into a very conservative religious group and grow up always being afraid that I was going to get in trouble with God or somebody else somewhere. But here we are. And so the post-traumatic growth factor is very real. I love so much that that's such a huge thing that you highlight. And what I would say is that there is growth for everyone, no matter where, no matter what brought them to where they are now. There's growth for everyone.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So if people want to connect with you and with your work, where do they go?
I also have a podcast. It's called the Ex Good Girl Podcast. And that's where I talk a lot about the big ideas that I have, big and small, I'll be honest. And you can find my website, sarahfisk.coach. Yes, that is an actual URL, .coach. And I would love to hear from you. If anything from this episode resonated, if you have a difficult conversation coming up or something that you're avoiding, let's talk about it, because the freedom on the other side of just beginning to practice these skills is really incredible and really worth having, and you deserve to have it.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your brilliance with my people.
Well,
I appreciate it.
You're an easy person to talk to. I love you so much. And I really love spending time in your community. They're just amazing women.
Well, every time you have come in, they have had amazing things to say about you too. So it is completely mutual. Yeah. All right. I love you, my friend. Thank you. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.